If you're wanting to impress, chocolate soufflés are a great way to do it. This one only requires 6 ingredients and minimal effort. Welcome to Recipes by Carina, where I show you how to make classic and simply delicious recipes. Make sure to subscribe for a new video each week. This chocolate soufflé is also part of my chocolate series, which you can find linked below. To start, using a serrated knife, cut dark chocolate into small pieces. Alternatively, you can break it up with your hands, but I always find cutting it much faster. For these soufflés, chocolate is the main ingredient and mostly what you'll be tasting in this dessert. For that reason, choose the best quality chocolate you can. Try to stay away from chocolate chips and go for a block of eating chocolate. Dark works best for this, go for 70% if you want it to be incredibly rich, or for a little sweeter flavour, 50% is great too. If you would like the full recipe for this chocolate soufflé, it will be on my website as well as the full measurements listed in the description box below. This recipe was also a subscriber request, so if you have anything you would like to learn to make sure to let me know in the comments below. You'll need 170 grams or 6 ounces, which works out to be about 2/3 of my block of dark chocolate. Place the chopped chocolate into a heat-proof bowl along with a tablespoon of butter and 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. This, along with egg yolks, which we will add later on, is the base to our soufflés. Although majority of soufflés are chocolate, there are many different flavours you can choose from. Savoury or sweet, anything from a baked cheese soufflé to fresh lemon. Pour the cream into the mixing bowl and place over a bain-marie, which is a French term for a water bath. When you're melting chocolate, there is really only 2 ways to do it, over a water bath or bain-marie, or in the microwave. Placing the chocolate in a saucepan directly over the heat is quite dangerous, as 9 times out of 10 the chocolate will burn. Make sure the water isn't touching the bottom of the bowl and leave the chocolate to melt, stirring occasionally while prepping the ramekins. Soufflés are iconic for their fluffy high rise, so you want to make sure there is nothing getting in their way. This means the ramekins need to be greased well, so there is no chance the soufflé will stick, stopping it from rising up. Using softened butter on a piece of greaseproof paper, wipe the inside of all of the ramekins so they are quite well coated. You don't want any large clumps of butter in the ramekins, but a generous coating is good. Add a few teaspoons of white sugar to one of the ramekins and turn it around, tilting it so the sugar sticks to all of the inside surface area before pouring the excess sugar into the next one. Repeat this process until all of your ramekins are coated. By this point, the chocolate, butter and cream should be melted. Check there isn't any chocolate that hasn't melted and take the bowl off the heat, leaving it for a few minutes to cool. You want to make sure the mixture isn't too hot for this next step, or you may end up with scrambled eggs. Separate 3 medium-sized eggs, placing the whites in a small bowl and the yolks in the bowl with the melted chocolate. Make sure your eggs are at room temperature. If you store them in the fridge, just remove them about 30 minutes before you start baking. It's really important here to make sure there is no yolk in your egg white, as we will be whipping these up. If you're not confident separating eggs by transferring the yolk to one half of the shell and then the other, there are a few other ways to do it. You can crack the whole egg over your hand, separating your fingers for the white to fall through, or you can buy an egg separator, which will do most of the work for you. Using a rubber spatula, mix the egg yolks into the melted chocolate, butter and cream. You'll have a thick, glossy mixture. This is the base for our soufflés, so set it to the side while we whip up the egg whites. We'll need 5 egg whites in total for this recipe, so separate another 2 eggs, placing the whites in the same bowl and reserving the yolks for another recipe, or just add it to your scrambled eggs the next morning. Whipping egg whites and making a meringue isn't really a job you can do by hand, so I would recommend to use a stand mixer or a hand mixer. Add the egg whites to the bowl of your stand mixer or a large bowl if you're using a hand mixer and start to whip on a low speed first until the eggs start to become frothy. Add about a teaspoon of salt to the whites and whip on high speed until they reach soft peaks. Soft peaks is basically when the egg whites are starting to hold their shape. If you pull the whisk attachment out of the egg whites, you should see a peak that doesn't quite hold its shape and the tip will fall to the side. When your egg whites have reached this stage, you can start to add the sugar. In a souffle, sugar is added to the egg whites instead of the souffle base as it gives the whites stability, meaning they are less likely to fall and lose the air that you are currently whipping in. Measure out half a cup of white sugar and with the mixer on the highest speed, slowly start to incorporate it. Adding it all at once will cause your egg whites to deflate, so either add it about a tablespoon at a time or slowly sprinkle it in like I am. With your sugar incorporated, continue to mix the meringue for another 3 to 5 minutes or until you have glossy, stiff peaks. Stiff peaks are like soft peaks, but instead of the peak just holding itself up, it stands tall and the tip of the peak doesn't fall over. An easy way to test this is you can turn the bowl upside down on top of your head and nothing will fall out. Add a third of your meringue to the souffle base and using a rubber spatula start to fold it in. Adding a third first, we're just trying to lighten up the mixture so it's easier to add the remaining, so you don't need to be too careful here. When the white is all incorporated into the chocolate, add the remaining 2/3 and start to fold it in using big sweeping motions and cutting through the center. Using something like a whisk or just mixing like normal will significantly deflate the white, so you want to make sure, as well as thoroughly mixing, you're also being gentle. You should end up with a very light and fluffy chocolate mixture. Using a spoon, or I find a cookie scoop works well, add the souffle batter to your ramekins. This should be enough for 6 depending on the size of your ramekins, but I'm just going to make 4 for today. The remaining we'll save in the fridge for tomorrow to make more. Flatten off the top of your ramekins, this makes it rise more evenly, and another trick, run your thumb along the rim. Place the souffles in the oven for about 12 minutes for more of a molten centre, or about 15 minutes for a completely set centre. Serve your souffle immediately out of the oven, as with every second it will start to deflate. I like mine topped with whipped cream and maybe a sprinkling of icing sugar. Remember to subscribe and let me know if you're going to make this recipe. Thank you for watching and I will see you in my next video.